I figured I'd do a little video on overheating, VW engine overheating prevention. So, one things I want to say, first of all, this engine's never run hot, and you know, I'm just wanted to make that clear. This engine was rebuilt, and then since then we never did fill in the holes. So at the same time, I'm going to add in this video how to fill these holes in right here as a, you know, I could say temporary / permanent repair without using any welding. So some of you guys may not have welding equipment, and maybe you just bought a car and you want to drive it home on the freeway, and before you drive it on the freeway you want to fill these holes. If you're just driving around town 10 minutes at a time, typically these being open is not going to make your engine overheat, and I'll kind of explain how it happens. The air comes in through the back of the engine, so you can understand why this does this. The air comes in through the back of the engine. The fan opening is back here, goes down through here, through the fan shroud, down over the cylinder tin, and has tin underneath that push the air to the back of the car. And when you're just driving around town, you're not going down the road getting that road air going behind a lot, which kind of creates pressure under here. So when you're on the freeway, if you have leaks around here in the back, what happens is it kind of, because the shape of the car being going down like this and the air coming underneath, it kind of creates a little bit of a pressure right here underneath the car, and then it makes the hot air want to come back through here and then go back, and then it gets sucked into the fan and just start circulating over and over and over through your engine and getting it hot. So that's why a lot more commonly you'll see freeway problems with VWs. If you're driving on the freeway for a long distance, you definitely want to make sure your tin is all there and tight and not, you know, leaking much. It could be a little bit of a leak like around here. That's not going to cause much of a problem. But if these tubes here are removed, okay, right here, if this is removed, okay, and you have these open, that's going to make your engine overheat very quickly, because now you have less air going down over the cylinder tin because it's all leaking out of this hole, and that will cause your engine to run hot. So here's the quick fix for this problem. It's a quick fix, but it's actually a really good way. You can leave it on there long term, and I've had them stay there for years by doing this. So I'm going to show you the trick here. So what you do is you go to Home Depot and you can get this stuff here. It's called foil tape, and what it is, it's basically aluminum foil, thick aluminum foil. They also sell it at Harbor Freight Tools. So if, let's say, you just bought a car and you want to drive it home and you notice that the tubes the holes are in the back of the tin are open, and you want to get some of this stuff before you get too far, maybe you can even drive to Home Depot and do it right there in the parking lot, or Harbor Freight. If you look on your phone, you find which is closer. The stuff at Home Depot has got a little bit thicker foil. So what you do is, the best way to use this stuff, instead of using scissors, is to just tear it. And if you tear it kind of uneven, it's easier than if you tear it straight across like I just did. If you tear it kind of uneven, it gives you a little bit of room to peel it. And it has adhesive back on it. And it's actually really kind of a sturdy tape. It has a really strong sticky stuff. Try not to touch the surface of where you're gonna the adhesive, and put it aside. I'm gonna get a rag real quick. I'll be right back. Well, let's hope you guys can see this okay. Have a little bit of trouble trying to get the camera angle just right for you. but I'll put you guys over here and just let you guys watch. So what you really want to do is you want to make sure the surface is clean and dry, free of oil. Since this engine's been rebuilt, it's pretty much all of those things, and so there's not a real problem. I'm going to go ahead and tear the foil like that without trying not to touch the adhesive too much, because I want it to be really on there good. So what I'll do is I'll make sure it's clean and dry. Now you might want to grab some chemical, maybe some brake cleaner or something like that if it's a car that's been out in the weather. And then you'll find this adhesive that's on this stuff to be pretty strong. And make sure if it's clean and dry, that should just stay on there for pretty much forever. I mean, I've left them on there for years and never had an issue. So that's sort of the repair you can do when you're on the road if you wanted to get home. I'm going to leave this on here, and I'm also going to show you that you can do this and actually paint this. I'm going to do this side too real quick. We'll go ahead and do that one. I'll go ahead and turn the camera off for that, and then we'll come back into it in a minute. So I've got both of these holes covered with foil tape. I'm going to show you guys how to actually get paint to adhere to that in a second. So if you wanted to just do this as like a permanent repair, like I said, I've had them on there for years on some of my engines, and then as long as it's on there, clean and dry surface, it should stick on there. This stuff's just really strong glue that's on this tape, the foil tape. If you have, let's say you just bought a car and you're going to drive it home and there's no freeze plug in here. So generally what people will do is they'll take this, if these tubes are missing or they're connected to nothing down below, you'll want to take these off, and actually the thing to do is just drop by the parts store, a local like O'Reilly or some parts store or AutoZone or whatever's closest to you, and get a freeze plug that fits. You just measure the outside diameter of this thing here. The outside diameter is usually going to be about right, and then get a freeze plug that fits inside there. I don't remember the exact size. Usually I end up measuring it myself at the time when I do it, because I usually have heaters on my cars. So if you did that, you can just shove a freeze plug in there. You could also, at the same time, you could use the same stuff, the foil tape. If you couldn't find a freeze plug, or if you know, or whatever, you could actually clean this really clean here, around here really clean. You put the foil tape on there, and then also, in addition to that, put a hose clamp on it, because the foil tape will not stay with that much air pressure. It's just, there's quite a bit of air pressure inside that fan shroud. So the other things are if you don't have these tubes, you want to make sure that these holes are filled. So you can use the same method by just using this foil tape, and make sure it's clean and dry, and put it on there. And now, so what I'm going to do is, next thing is I'm going to show you guys how to not just paint it, but also make it so it doesn't, so it'll stay on there a little bit better. One of the little tricks I do. Stay tuned. Right, so the first thing I do is I'll take a thing of Scotch-Brite like this and just carefully stuff the surface of the foil tape. This is to paint it. If you just throw paint on this and you don't do this, it's not going to stick, just so you know. I mean, tape on the aluminum tape has like a little bit of like a wax on the surface, and you got to get that kind of removed a little bit and get it scuffed up a little bit to have something adhere to it. Now the next thing I'll do to get something to stick to aluminum tape is I use this primer right here. This is called XIM primer, and this primer will stick to about anything, glass, anything. This is a great prime product. Do not put a thick coat. You have to put a very, very, very extremely light coat. In fact, you do not make it cover. You just put a mist over it, and that's it. So I'm going to prime this out, but at first I'm going to go ahead and mask it. Alright, I worked a long time ago on little Hispanic guys body shop, and he used to call this making a panocha. You guys who speak Spanish, you know what a panocha is? Okay, I just thought I'd throw that in there for fun. That means, in you guys who don't speak Spanish, the closest word that's not rated G would be vagina. Alright, so once you've got it masked off, then you're going to put a really light coat of this primer on there. And then usually what I'll do is I'll kind of smear my finger around the edge and kind of make it so that it gets a little, you know, fills in that edge of the tape, so if any oil or anything gets on here, it doesn't seep its way under the tape. Be sure to shake your can really good. This stuff is, you got to really shake this stuff really good. If you use this primer, make sure you shake it just for a really long period of time. All right, now for the magic. That's it. And what I do is I take my finger and just kind of rub it underneath that edge. Just a really, really light coat. You see how the foil is not completely covered. I'll do the other one real quick. That's almost a little too heavy. It's going to have to be dry before I put the Krylon over it. Because Krylon's lacquer. And lacquer paint will wrinkle if it's on, you know, over this primer too heavy. You have to put really light coats of it on there and build it up really slow. So, that's all done. Now I use my Krylon Satin Black. Make sure you shake it really good. Now, you don't need to quite shake this as much as you do the other, but you do need to shake it still. Wait a good 10 minutes for this stuff to dry. It's just a hair sticky. I'm going to wait a little longer. Alright, so this you want to put on in really light coats. Just going to let that set for a second. Do the other side. God, this isn't really coming out fast. Woo! It's really much easier to control a spray gun, but this will work. I'll let this set for a good 10 minutes now. Alright, I'm a little impatient. I'll just go ahead and hit this again. Good enough. Let's see how it looks. Alright, we're looking pretty good. Let's take a look up close, see what that looks like. It looks pretty good. You know, you don't really notice that there's holes there that have been filled. And it's a nice temporary repair, so eventually if I decided to go ahead and cut those out again really pretty easily, you could do with a razor blade. But they will stay on there pretty well, and I could put the heat riser in if I ever wanted to again. Obviously the flapper's missing. There's no real sense in it on right now. I probably have an air cleaner that has a good flapper if I wanted to do it, but you know, in this climate there's not really any need for it. So anyway, those are the things to look at. Another thing, again, always make sure your timing's at a total of 28 degrees max for, you know, check it advanced all the way, which is about what, 7 when it's at idle, somewhere around there, depending on the distributor you have, 5 to 7, somewhere in there, at idle. Those are other things. If it's too far advanced, you'll be running hot. If it's too far retarded, it'll actually run hot. Those are some of the basic things to look for. Of course, there's a lot more things you can do. I put other videos out on how to prevent engine overheating, but this is kind of an additional thing, and trying to show you guys also how to fill those holes in a quick, easy way. You can use the same method again for these holes here, or you can also use it for up here, but you would definitely want to clamp on there. The best way for up here is to use a freeze plug, and just hammer it in place. Make sure it's plenty big enough to where it stays in. If it isn't, you can always coat it with silicone, let it dry, and put it in place. That works too, to keep all the air, all the hot air, all the cool air on the top of the engine is where it comes in through this vent up above, and that's all supposed to be cool air that's on this side of the engine. The hot air comes out and underneath the car, so always remember that. And when you're driving down the road, it starts to create pressure under here, especially on the freeway, and that's when you'll have problems with overheating. And that's why sometimes, I remember back in the old days, some guys would leave off the front tin, and you know, I don't really do that, but some guys will leave that off and say that actually you'll get air from underneath because you create pressure going down the road underneath your car a little bit, and that air pressure gets more air into the back of the engine. You know, I haven't really been able to test that theory, so I can't really say that it works or doesn't work. I'd like to hear comments on that one. Maybe you've tried it, maybe not, and maybe it's worked or not worked for you. Put a comment. We'll like to see it. All right, talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.